let's transition into talking about business leaders. And on our theme of like, well, what do you expect? What do you expect when a conspiracy theorist gets a microphone? What do you expect? So I don't know whether you know much about the story, but there's a gentleman called Alex Jones who is the host of a let's call it a radio show. Some would say it's a conservative radio show. Some would actually say it's more of a conspiracy radio show that he has. But he's a media personality that likes to. He's very vocal. Let's call him. He's a modern day shock jock, right? He's kind of like the Kyle Sanderlands, I suppose you could say would be a good reference for him. But if you listen to his stuff, he's very, very strongly opinionated one way or other about something, and he does like to focus on the conspiracy behind things. Whether they be true or not, he's very vocal around that. And when there was the Sandy Hook school mass shooting, unfortunately, he viewed his opinions quite strongly, almost rallied his army around, because obviously his followers are very strong followers. He's got a very strong fan base, and he started out by claiming that was a hoax. He said that no, it didn't happen, it's a hoax. And unfortunately, there was a lot of public attack on social media and in person as well against the families of the victims of the children that have been that were unfortunately killed in that mass shooting. And there was this big court case around it, and there's a lot of controversy around that alone. But the court verdict was $965 million that he needs to pay out. That's his court payout that he needs to pay out, $965 million. And then now they're going to trying to persuade the defendants, not the defendants, sorry, the what's the word for the other side? Sorry, I've gone blank on that.
We have the prosecution. You mean the prosecution?
That's it, the prosecution.
Yeah, prosecution and defense, yeah.
That's it. So we don't get everything right. We're not lawyers, obviously. But the prosecution are now trying to claim for, get this, $2.75 trillion in damages. That's it. $2.75 trillion in damages. Now, obviously, he's done the typical business response. I'm going to go to Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and you don't get anything. Because, look, from an organization that makes that, there's discussions around, let's say, roughly around $10 million a year. Obviously, it's not all profit. Maybe there's a couple of $1 million in profit, but it costs a lot of money to run a media station, as you know, Dr. Rod, as you've done in the past. And so two things. What do you expect? What do you expect when a conspiracy theorist says something that his stuff is all just way out there? What do you expect when he rants about something like this? And then what do you expect when you try to sue someone for almost $1 billion and then what? No, we're going to go for $2.75 trillion. Well, it's just going to go into bankruptcy and you're not going to get a cent. What do you expect, Dr. Rod?
Well, I would expect a bit of sanity to prevail.
Exactly.
But I think for those of us who live in places like Australia, we just can't follow the American legal system because damages both claimed and actually awarded just seem to be so mind-bogglingly out of line with anything that anybody could ever pay. But one of the things that struck me, reading about him, I'm actually wondering whether his business model doesn't include being sued every now and then, and that some of this is a deliberate ploy to generate publicity.
Yeah, well,
I think in
on
this
that
case,
note, there was a I forget what, there was someone being interviewed about this, and they were saying that, well, the media actually made a mistake by making this case so big, because before Alex Jones was just this random guy on social media and had a show and that was it, and had a bit of a cult following, and he was kind of known for what he does. But now they're kind of making a martyr out of him, and now everyone knows who Alex Jones is. Everyone's talking about. Now he's this massive celebrity. He's gone into Chapter 11, which in America is pretty much means he can run as he wants. He just can't make a profit, and any profit that he makes, he has to pay to the ruling or to the verdict. But as we all know, you can run a business at a loss and make lots of money. You just happen to have different expenses, right? And this is just making him more famous. So what do you expect when you're suing someone so greatly for this? Yeah, you're adding fuel to the fire almost.
Yes, look, I think it's very regrettable, of course, that families have suffered.
Yes.
And let me say at the outset, I don't share his particular theory on what happened there. I think the evidence is quite strongly to the contrary, that it actually did happen, and that real people lost their lives, and it's caused great trauma for many families. So I don't agree with the notion that a business model should include making outrageous, unfounded, badly researched statements in the knowledge that you are likely at some point or other to be sued, and then you'll get lots and lots of free publicity. So look, I don't agree if that's his business model. I don't agree with it. I think we should take great care with any news or current affairs that affects the lives of individuals. But the way in which these things are hyped up, and the legal system with these massive claims and often actual awards of damages that really don't bear any economic relationship with the harm done, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I think it's just leading us down the wrong path altogether. The best thing to do would be to simply ignore him. Yes. Really. If we could somehow, as a side, look, just go into your corner, do your little thing. We don't agree with that. I mean, I don't think, as a Christian, I don't think that we should knowingly impose any kind of hardship or cost on others for our own direct benefit.
Yeah, that's good.
I just don't think that's how the kingdom of God.
I want you to repeat that, Dr. Rob, because that's actually a really powerful statement.
I don't think we should impose any cost on others knowingly in order to generate revenue or income or profit for ourselves. So I just don't think we should be playing around with a story like this, if indeed that is his business model.
Yeah.
I don't think it sits well at all with our Christian culture.
So we as leaders, a lesson we can take from this is be careful who we're getting our information from. Be very careful, because what do you expect when you listen to a conspiracy theorist? He's going to share conspiracies. And it almost, for me, it kind of, I suppose it almost is in line with gossip, and the Bible speaks very strongly
but
about
I'll tell
that.
you what, I think some of what we called conspiracy theory during COVID is turning out to be true. And look, I think this is symptomatic of the fact that we have or are losing our confidence in public institutions like government, like academic experts, our universities, our hospitals, and so on. So I think one reason for the proliferation of what we might loosely call conspiracy theories is we're losing trust in the people in whom we should have trust. And look, I feel this myself. I think I feel far less secure in trusting government and the so-called experts now than I did even 3 years ago because of
Yep.
the experiences we've had. So there's something dreadfully wrong with many of our institutions. The Bible calls it sin.
Yeah.
And when our institutions are run for the benefit of individuals, not for the benefit of others, then this is bound to happen. And I think what we're seeing really is an outworking of true selfishness in all of our institutions, a grab for power, a grab for self-aggrandizement, and so on and so forth. And one of the costs we're paying as a society is we either have or we are losing confidence in public institutions.
Yeah, that. It's interesting because, I mean, think back a number of years ago. Let's say 5 years ago, conspiracy theories were UFOs, Beyonce's in the Illuminati, and aliens.
And we didn't land on
right?
the moon. Things like
and we
that,
didn't land on the moon,
Yeah.
right? You know, but now it's really interesting that now the conspiracy theories seem to be coming so much closer to home. That there's so much more validity to a lot of them, and they actually affect, like, who cares if Beyonce's in the Illuminati, or who cares if we actually landed on the moon or not, like, or the Earth is flat, whatever, you know. But there's certain things now, like, especially from the pandemic, all these things and the things you're seeing in politics and January 6th and all that happened in the States, all these conspiracies are now kind of, it's this whole misinformation. I suppose the question that I've got for you, Dr. Rod, is how do we as leaders know that some information that we're receiving is misinformation, conspiracy theory, or just fact?
Oh, look, that's very hard to do, especially when, a lot of people get their information from the internet. So you've got to be very careful about how you source information. You do need, I think, to refer to quite a lot of different sources. You do need to ask yourself, has this person got the kind of track record that would lead me to trust them?
Yeah.
Or this source, be it a government source or an expert or whatever. I have to say, I'm an academic, but I find it harder and harder to take even academics or experts at their word, because I'm never sure what kind of political position might be lurking, underneath what they're saying. I feel the overreach of governments during COVID was massive. I know here in Australia we had a pandemic response policy at the national level that had only been revised, I think, in 2019. That just went out the window. Look, we've been through, I think, a period of time which has created a lot of negative impacts, but I think it has woken us up to the fact that we're living in the West, in particular, we're living in a world which has become increasingly godless.
Yeah.
Where many individuals are extremely, they're centered on themselves, in a sense they are self-centered, as it were. My plea to leaders, if you want to be a decent, godly leader, you need to place a very, very high priority on your personal integrity.
Yeah.
You really do. And I think that, we're lacking integrity in a lot of leaders today. And I think it's primarily because they are leading for themselves. They're not leading for others. And Jesus led for others. This is where the whole idea of servant or shepherd leadership comes from. Jesus led for others. And as leaders, I think we need to do the same. So integrity is vitally important, even if it costs us. I'd rather lose a leadership position than compromise on integrity.
That's really good. So let's not be that person that is looked at as a conspiracy theorist. Let's be looked at someone that has integrity. Let's be that person that a type of leader that people can look to and trust that what they say is true. When you don't know, admit you don't know, talk about what you know and the facts, but, be of integrity. And then we can have people look to us and follow us properly. Another thought with that, Dr. Rod, is obviously the victims are going against Alex Jones and all this drama that's happening. Sometimes we go against. I mean, it kind of like never fight a crazy person. Right? I kind of like, I remember like back. I used to always. My father actually taught me. My father taught me how to defend myself and how to look after myself physically if I got into any drama. And my dad always taught me, don't necessarily worry about the big scary guy. Watch out for the little crazy guy, because the little crazy guy in the corner, like, he's the one that's going to actually cause problems and not care or what like, and so it kind of feels like these people, there's kind of two lessons from two different sides, is let's not be a conspiracy theorist and let's have some integrity. But the other side of it is like, be careful who we're fighting against. Like, it just seems like this fight, they're fighting against a crazy person. So they've become crazy in fighting him, asking for 2.75 trillion, and all this sort of stuff. Like, they've kind of, like the old saying is like, if you argue with a stupid person, it makes two, right? So, yes, I can't tell you where all these quotes came from. They're just random things that I've picked up over time. They're not official quotes of anyone, but they just make sense, right? So how do we pick our battles, Dr. Rod?
With great wisdom, and you need to pray a lot about it. Look, as Christians, we've usually clearly made up our mind we're not going to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And we usually have a menu of good things to choose from. We've got to choose the best. And I think it is important for us to know what is God's assignment for us. And then we need to be quite careful to stick within the boundaries of that assignment. So what you and I are doing now, that is perfectly consistent with what I believe to be God's assignment to me at this point. Now, it's always going to be consistent with my overarching call in life. It's all about communication.
Yeah.
And it's primarily focused on the business world.
Yeah.
My assignment, so yes, I'm a pastor. I'm known as the business pastor. I pastor people in business. I do have a church, but that fits within the assignment. And so I think it's important that we understand, what has God assigned us to?
Yeah.
And for you and me, there's an overlap of assignment. Your assignment and mine are not the same, but right now, as we're sharing together, we're operating within that overlap.
Yeah.
And so we need, I think, prayerfully to consider what is it that God has actually assigned us to, and our choices should be made within that context. I don't know whether that helps, Craig. But
no, it does.
It's a complex area. It's a very, very complex area. But we should be very careful to avoid operating in such a way as to knowingly hurt or undermine others, or do damage to their, flourishing as a human being.
Yeah.
And everything we should do, we're meant, God intended that every human being should flourish. Everything we do, I believe, should contribute positively to the flourishing of others. And like as a general guideline for anyone who's a Christian, there are three things, and I think we shared these last week. We give God glory. We're here to give God glory. We're here to encourage one another. That is to encourage the saints. And we're here to bring the good news of the gospel to those who don't know it. And I think that provides a pretty good framework for the way in which we should operate as leaders. And look, if I could just add one other thing, look,
Yeah.
I think we need to be quite careful about just saying this is how someone's doing it. All right. So we look at someone like Alex Jones and say, this is how Alex is doing it. Why don't I do the same thing to achieve my objective?
Yeah.
But you've got to filter that through.
Yeah.
Does it give God glory? Does it encourage the saints? And does it contribute something to the spread of the gospel and salvation of the lost?
Yeah.
And then, of course, what is the overarching heart of God is that all on this planet should flourish.
Yes.
I think they're fairly good filters, but it's not easy. It's not easy, Craig. You know, the easiest thing in the world for me to do is to sit in my office here in Australia and do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But when someone is in an environment where they have to actually make the choices, it's not all that easy.
Yeah. Yeah, and back to what you were saying before, we need to know what our assignment is. We need to know what our purpose is. And that it makes it easier. It doesn't make it easy. It just makes it easier. And
that's correct.
And
that's right.
It's easier for us to make decisions. It's easier for us to know what to do. It's easier for us to be able to spend the time to hear from God, to get the guidance from Him. And shameless plug, I gotta put this. If you're struggling to know what your assignment is or your purpose is, well, our leadership program starts off with guiding you through discovering what your purpose is, and we use a number of different really cool mechanisms to be able to do that in line with the Holy Spirit, being connected with God and hearing from Him what His assignment is for us, as well as a lot of really practical tools.
Link and I can say do that because I've seen most of these materials. I love them, and one of the reasons why I'm working with Craig like this for nothing is because I really believe in what it is he's doing. And so, yeah, hook into it because I guarantee it's going to change your life.
Hey, you've just watched an excerpt from the On the Cubed Leadership Podcast. If you'd like to watch the full episode, click the link. And hey, we would love it if you would consider subscribing to watch more faith-based leadership content.